Welcome, everybody. Exciting Polaris today. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, questions and answers. We are live. If you have questions, please chat in the chat or Q&A. We will try to loop them into the conversation and make it interactive. Audio configured on the bottom left of your Zoom screen. You can tweet at us or with us at AnyRoad or hashtag Polaris by AnyRoad. And lastly, we are recording this so we can share it out and you can watch it and reference it later on. All right, really quickly, what is AnyRoad? I'm Daniel Yaffe. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at AnyRoad. For those of you who are less familiar, we were founded in 2012, and we're the platform for the experience economy and for brands to scale and optimize customer experiences that change behavior. Companies like Michaels, Caruso, Dick's Sporting Goods all count on AnyRoad to scale and leverage their experiential records from activations, appointments, to tours and classes. If you're investing in experiential, please check out our website or reach out to talk to us. Our guest today is Vince, the founder and director of Meow Wolf. Vince, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited that you're here. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second so we can see us full on. So I would imagine a lot of folks that are joining today know what Meow Wolf is. They've been there. They've been to one of the locations. But can you briefly explain what is Meow Wolf? Maybe briefly, like, how did it all get started?
Gosh, I mean, the question of what is Meow Wolf is like honestly one of the toughest questions to answer. I can answer it like the very kind of vanilla way, which is that it's an arts and entertainment production company, and then we primarily produce large-scale multimedia, interactive, immersive storytelling experiences. That's the easy definition, but to us, like, Meow Wolf is it's a force of nature. It's an entity that entered this plane of existence that we're all a part of, and like has a mission, has an intention. And we are part of it, like the founders of it and the artists involved and the employees. It's like we're all part of this thing that wants to exist and wants to have a certain, impact on the world. And it's all centered around like venturing into the unknown. It's all about like exploring areas that are unexplored. And so we're all just kind of like on that ride, and I think like a business, the business of Meow Wolf and these large scale location based exhibitions are just kind of the like latest articulation of that entity, but who knows what its next steps are going to be.
I love that.
And I mean that I mean all of that like very truly, like I'm not just being like cheeky about it. Like that's how it feels to us.
That's awesome. What is the origin story? How did it all begin?
Well, we were all just in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's a very like artsy place. Lots of galleries, lots of artists. And some of us grew up there, and we were in our 20s, and we honestly just didn't feel like we fit into the identity that Santa Fe had created. Santa Fe was very much about sunsets and turquoise and cowboy boots and desert landscape. And we were like 20 somethings in 2008, who wanted to like blast Animal Collective and throw dance parties and be kind of off the wall and be maximal. And there just wasn't room in Santa Fe's identity to like embrace that, And so we just basically stopped waiting for someone to invite us into their space. And instead we just said, we're just going to start our own space. So it's very like DIY clubhouse style thing, and we were all broke, and so we like got together, chose the name Meow Wolf out of a hat, like totally hands, like Meow came out of one hat, Wolf came out of the other, just non sequitur, and started to hang out together inside of a space that we rented, and we would pull materials out of dumpsters and save up whatever little money we had to like buy materials to build whatever, and then we booked like music shows and punk shows and dance parties, and so yeah, just kind of your like traditional sort of like DIY clubhouse art collective space. And then our projects got better and better over the years, and to the point where we were at this fork in the road where we either, you know, we had to either like become a business or just stop doing what we were doing. Cause we were like, we became 30-year-olds at some point, 35-year-olds. And everyone's like, what are we doing with our lives? We need to go to like, am I going to go back to college? I want to start a family. I need to start a real career. And so we were ready to put Meow Wolf behind, you know, in the rear view mirror. But one last shot at it, like wrote a business plan and said, what if we did this at like a bigger scale? And what if we did it permanently? What if we got a new space? And that's when we approached George R.R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones, and basically said, like, if you buy this building, this old bowling alley in Santa Fe, and we build this crazy exhibit in there, like, you know, we think that this could work. And that's what happened. And then it was just like a freaking like overnight success that took 10 years to get there, you know?
Totally. Yeah. Is George still involved?
Yeah. He's like, he helps us with some narrative stuff.
Cool.
We call him our chief world builder. He like gives us advice on big, large scale narrative construction. And then we meet with him every now and then. He has ideas for exhibitions and for different rooms and stuff. So yeah, he's involved.
That's awesome. I remember hearing some of that about the foundation of Meow Wolf that is very community based, right? You started with friends. It was very community based, hosting events. I'm curious how that plays into it now and into the business plan of scaling Meow Wolf.
Yeah, I mean, it shows itself in a couple places. I mean, that's definitely where tension exists, because like you're a social group and then you're a business, and there is a difference between the two. And there needs to be, I think, for like a lot of reasons, there needs to be. Yeah. But then really good businesses also have characteristics of being a really good social group, you know? So it's like, you want to balance those things. A lot of us live in Santa Fe still. A lot of the team, we have like 500 employees in Santa Fe. And so there's still a very communal feel to how things work with us. But then when we go to places like Vegas or Denver, we also want to work directly with local artists and local organizations, do social impact work with like people on the ground in those cities that are already doing that work. And so then that brings in that community social group vibe to the company, which like I said, I think is really healthy to have as a company.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I would imagine there's a lot of guests listening right now that are all about the experience economy, creating immersive experiences. I know I was looking earlier, there's some brands, there's agencies, there's people who are involved in this world in a lot of different ways. And I'm curious, when you think about Meow Wolf in creating that engaging experience that people want to spend time at, and doing it from an intentional perspective, especially like the expansion of Meow Wolf into Vegas, into Denver, you know, how do you go about doing that or creating those immersive experiences that are going to draw people in?
Yeah, you know, there's the obvious things like, you know, the work, attention to detail, and the work, you know, the work that you're creating in these immersive spaces needs to be visually stunning. Audio is something that's interesting that people forget about so often, how important sound is, and like really good sound makes for a really good immersive experience. So there's like the obvious things like that. But I think the findings that are most relevant, it's like when you're creating an immersive space, you're recreating what we already live through every day. Like immersive spaces aren't anything new. In fact, we were born into an immersive space called the hospital, or we walk into an immersive space every day called the grocery store, or like I'm in an immersive space right now, which is like a hotel lobby. Like immersive spaces are just reality. Like that's just what they are. And so when you design for them, you don't want to change the mechanics of how we experience reality. Otherwise, you're going to create like an experience that is like off kilter from what people are comfortable with or used to or good at. And so at the heart of that is you give your guest agency. And because that's what we have every day, we can like go left, right, up, down, we can do whatever we want. So give people agency and then let them explore and discover with that agency. And then the last thing I would say is that exploration and discovery, because that's really the magic of Meow Wolf, is that we provide exploration, opportunity to explore, and then discovery. And that has to happen within the context of the unknown. The unknown is critical to that, because if you create an immersive world that is known in any way, is predictable, is something we've seen before, is an IP that we've watched thousands of movies or television shows on, like, then you're not going to be able to provide the space necessary for exploration and discovery. Because if it's known, people have already explored and discovered it. So that part is really critical to that whole process. And that's oftentimes we want to over operationalize our immersive experiences. We want to take people through a certain sequence, and that immediately kills the like magic of what an immersive experience can bring, which is ultimately activating curiosity, activating the imagination.
That's awesome. I want to step into, you talked about like reality, and I know you and I had previous conversations. I really want to step into that bridge, if I may, of reality. What is reality? What is not reality? Get into the metaverse. Before we do that, I want to kind of ask more about where Meow Wolf is going, and maybe this will slide us into that. But where is Meow Wolf going as a brand, as an experience, as a company?
Yeah, well, you know, like kind of anchored to what I kind of just said around the context needing to be unknown, so that exploration and discovery can exist within it. The same is true for us as a company. Like, if it's prescribed, and if it's like if we just create a bunch of location-based exhibits over and over again, then we become known, and then it becomes less of a, Meow Wolf becomes less of an environment where exploration and discovery can happen in. So I think for us, the challenge is to always kind of not know what we're going to do next. But of course, like, we're going to be, it's like, we want to articulate we want to articulate the artistry, the creative, the imagination of Meow Wolf. We want to articulate it in multiple mediums, traditional mediums, video games, movies, television. Like, that's obviously all very interesting to us. And then technology, metaverse, dare I say, like, if you're not thinking about it, like, then then I'm not sure what you're doing. And so I think, like, of course, like in the opportunities within the quote unquote metaverse is huge for creativity, like, co-creation and the expression of the imagination. So we're definitely thinking about what that means. And to us, honestly, like, the metaverse means something completely different than I think what most people have come to think about as the metaverse. Like, to us, it's not a virtual environment. Virtual environment's a part of it. But to us, it's more about existing within the realm of the imagination, no matter the medium, and being able to have a persistent and substantial existence within an imaginative realm at all times, whenever you choose to, and that, of course, virtual has a lot to do with that, but physical matters in that as well.
So essentially a physical metaverse is what you're saying.
A mixed reality metaverse, where physical is anchors, but like, essentially, and this isn't something Meow Wolf is doing. This is something that, like, the humans have been doing since the beginning, since the beginning of their existence, or it's something that consciousness honestly has been doing since the beginning of time, which is venturing towards the dream. Like, we are bringing forth imagination at a higher rate today than we ever have, and that trajectory has been true.
That's interesting.
Forever. And so it's like we are moving more and more and more and more towards dream and existing within dream. Now, in order to, like, exist within the imagination with persistence and consistency and substance and relevance, technology needs to exist to be able to connect all of the component parts of the dream. And so, but like the physical reality, it's like, if the metaverse is just, or if the dream is just logging onto your computer or your VR headset, then it's not a full dream, because, like, once you take the headset off, you're back in quote unquote reality. So it's important that the physical reality also be stitched with all of this, so that the dream can become fully realized.
And then the dream becomes reality, essentially.
Yeah, totally. And that's like, I oftentimes say, like, just consider there to be a dichotomy between what's real and what's imaginary. And so there's a dichotomy, there's a line between the two, there's a barrier between the two, what's real and what's imaginary. In 10,000 BC, what was real and what was imaginary was a very distinct line. In 2022, that line is being blurred, and we've been blurring that line forever. Intentionally, yeah. Because the hope is that if you completely dissolve that line, the dichotomy no longer exists. We don't have to worry about, is it real, is it not real?
Does that scare you or does that excite you?
For me, it excites me. But like, I understand why it's scary. But let me just remind everybody that like the emerging paradigm has always been scary to the current paradigm. It's a natural reaction. Like emerging paradigms are fucking freaky because they are literally a new paradigm. They're literally like fundamentally different than where we are today. And so, yeah, I understand why deep fakes are scary. I understand why like AR headset, volumetric characters with AI capabilities walking around is a scary thought today. Once we're fully in the next paradigm, we'll understand how to deal with it and why it's not as scary as it may have seemed. But I talk about language a lot. Like another thought exercise. Imagine being one of imagine being one of the cavemen back in the day that maybe wasn't as advanced with its spoken language as other cavemen that you saw. So spoken language being the new paradigm, the new technology. Like you witness other cavemen like speaking with their mouths and seemingly communicating something to each other that seems to matter, but you don't recognize what's going on. Like that's a scary thought to think that there's like this thing happening that you're not a part of, and how is that going to integrate with my reality, and so like there's and you think with language, it's like back in the day, like sure, maybe some people were talking and there's some like emergence of spoken language, but it wasn't nearly as important as making a fire or killing that deer or whatever it might be.
Survival.
And so you're right. And but then language over time became everything, became like the entirety of our existence, basically. Like everything is language with humans now. And I think similarly with the imagination, it's like we're getting these little windows, these little glimpses of the imaginative realm, as if it's like this little side story to our existence, to our reality. But like fast forward 50, 100, 500,000 years from now, it's going to become the entirety of our reality. Like we will just be fully in imagination.
Super interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced of this.
And then that's kind of what you're considering the metaverse, like that cross of reality and
what we call metaverse right now is just like a really important step in that paradigm shift. It's like the infrastructure, the bridge in paradigm shift.
That's really interesting. What do you, I mean, in that shift, in that monolithic shift where we're becoming more a part of the dreams are becoming more like reality, what part do you think both maybe technology and you and I have talked a bit about psychedelics, like where do those play in? Because it sounds like this can all start to blend together in some really interesting ways.
Yeah, well, I mean, the internet has done a couple of things that are really significant to that are tied to psychedelics and are tied to this moment that we're in, like around like basically, I think about the internet being able to offload a lot of our memory. Like humans have this thing in our inside of our skull that can envision something, and like we close our eyes and we think about something, we can envision it. It's really strong, it's really capable and programmed to envision the past. Like you can be like, oh yeah, that one time I went to that restaurant when I was 15 years old, and you can like remember it, right? You
Totally.
can see
All the senses. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so wonky when we try to use that same thing to think about the future, because we're so programmed and overloaded with the past.
Yeah.
And so what the internet has done is it's allowed us to offload the past into external of us. So like, I don't have to even remember that thing. I have a picture of it that's saved on my hard drive. Or like, I don't have to remember my phone number or anyone's phone number. I don't have to remember how to get to work because I've been, or how to get to another city because I have maps. And so what that does is it kind of opens up a clearing for us if we choose to use this technology inside of our skull to think about the future. The future is the unknown. It's beyond where we are today. And so we're like oriented now towards being able to do that if we're courageous enough. And then similarly, like the content, when we're on the internet, scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram, we are constantly looking for new content. Like at a Pavlovian level, hour by hour that we spend on our smartphones, we are seeking new content and unknown content. If you see something on your feed that you've seen before, you scroll right through it. If you see something interesting that you've never seen before, you stop and you look at it. And what's interesting is that when we get off of our phones and we go out into the real world, the quote unquote real world out here, the physical world, it's all the same. There's no new content. It's all very predictable. It looks like the 90s, like, and developments are like copy paste. And so what do? We get back on our phones and just stare at our phones all the time because the real world is actually not that interesting. There's no new content out there. And so I think that there's like the desire from consumers to have constant new content, even in the physical world. And there's also now like space in our brains to venture into the unknown in a much different way than ever before. And I think that that's kind of where like why the psychedelic wave is happening so much too, because like the biggest, suburban developments are definitely an apparatus of knowability that we are tired of, that we're bored of, that we want to move beyond, right? But there's an even bigger apparatus of knowability that we want to move beyond, which is ourself, our identity. Like the identity of Vince is so known and so boring. And so, and like, I don't know how to get beyond that. And then psychedelics comes along or other transformational therapies come along and say, hey, here's a way to potentially move beyond your known apparatus. And so I think that there's just like an eagerness in the world to like move beyond what is known. And all of these things are kind of playing into the same momentum.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Well, it breaks the mundane, right? I mean, psychedelics can be used in very familiar spaces and they become unfamiliar.
Totally.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah, and the magic of all of this, of like transformational therapy in any form, whether it's psychedelics or whatever, is like the identity, that apparatus of knowability is all based on memory, is all based on the past. And so like by disrupting that apparatus, it's like you free yourself up to be a being of the future, like to consider yourself, I am not who I have been, I am actually who I'm becoming. And that is where the creator lives. Like that's literally where the creator lives. That's where the artist lives. Like the creator is he or she who is becoming in the future, and so like as an entire humanity, like for the human race as an entire whole to be moving into that creator space or that creative space, I think is like the same paradigm shift that I've been talking about.
That's awesome. How do you see Meow Wolf fitting into that? And I'm putting these pieces together in some interesting ways of breaking the mundane, taking what we know as familiar. And I think about Omega Mart in Vegas, where you've created a grocery store, a suburban grocery store that looks so normal until you maybe look a little deeper, and then you whether it be at a product or you step into another universe. I'm curious just how you place Meow Wolf as a part of that transformation.
Yeah, we didn't design this. Like I think we've discovered this. Like again, like Meow Wolf created this thing, House of Eternal Return in Santa Fe, that started to impact people's lives. We knew it was going to be cool, but then we were getting feedback that it wasn't just cool, it was like impact changing people's lives, transformational for people. So I think we then tried to discover, like, well, what is it about the Meow Wolf experience in Santa Fe that is changing people's lives? And kind of came to learn that, like, immersive art is a way to basically create or simulate a psychedelic experience without the substance. And what that does is it unlocks the psychedelic experience for a huge range of people in the world. People who didn't vote for the president you and I voted for, people who live in rural areas, Midwest areas, people who have no interest in getting involved in something that has to do with substances, but they know that they want to venture into the unknown. And immersive art's like this, like, kind of Trojan horse that can, like, process millions and millions and millions of people through to, like, break them out of their mundane reality. So I kind of see it as maybe like transformational therapy, like 101.
Interesting.
If you want to just kind of dip your toe in and kind of feel how it feels to be in an unknown context, go to an immersive art space. And if you want to go farther from that, cool, there's options. Like,
I love that.
We've actually seen it functionally. So I just want to give this, like, share this story. We've seen it functionally work. Like, I remember I was at the House of Eternal Return in Santa Fe, and I saw this family, and it seemed like they're probably from the Midwest or maybe from Texas or something. And the father was like, the mom was really excited. The kids were really excited. The dad, who was like, 6'4", 300 pounds, he was just like arms crossed. He was pissed off that he was at Meow Wolf. He was like, what are we doing here? Like, this is some, leftist, this is some leftist bullshit over here. And he was grumpy. He goes, and then, like, a half an hour later, I see him inside the exhibit, and he's like crawling around the floor. He's like smiling and laughing. And so it's like, you literally watch, like, this, like, identity get broken by the unknown world that they're in. And then they get back in touch with the child in them. The child is the dreamer. The child's the imagination. The child's the one who has the future ahead of them. The child is the one who thinks, like, possibility exists in the world. And so you see all this stuff kind of, like, actually happen in front of you.
I love that. One of the ethos of our company is dream like children. It's something we think a lot about. That's awesome. Riffing on that for a second, what do you think the role of play is, both in Meow Wolf and Metaverse?
Exactly what you just said. Like, can't forget about that. Again, because, like, I think, like you said, dreaming like children or dream like children, there's so much to learn. There's so much to be reminded of, and to get back to that we had when we were children,
Totally.
And exploration and discovery at the heart of that, like, and deconstructing the identity is important, because, like, these are all things, like, children come into the world and the world is unknown. They themselves are unknown to themselves. So, like, they don't have that identity built up yet. So what's left? Exploration, discovery, curiosity. And then that's all tied to play. That's all tied to spirit. That's all tied to imagination, possibility. The future is possible. Like, all these things all wrapped in there. And ultimately, it's a playful space, Play is important too. I just thought about this. Play is important because it's courageous. Like, how do you want to deal with the unknown? The unknown is potentially very scary. It's potentially very risky. So you could be scared of the unknown, or you could see it as a sandbox, and you could play within the unknown. And so I think, like, tapping back into being like, our future is unknown, which doesn't need to be scary. It could be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and like I think that that's just a really important, characteristic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we encourage people to play, of course we do. But we
I love
also
it. Love
encourage
it.
people to think. We also encourage
Yeah.
people to socialize. It's not just a playground, but yeah.
Do you think technology will continue to play a role in Meow Wolf going forward?
Oh yeah, even more so. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. I think we have a lot of like physical computing, like microcontroller stuff going on inside of the exhibits. There is a lot of technology, a lot of like location tracking, sensor tracking stuff. Yeah, I think that it's bridging it into the virtual, and that is a big next step for us. Like
That's awesome.
how does my experience at Meow Wolf physically matter to me within Meow Wolf's virtual, ecosystem?
Yeah. This actually brings up a question. I want to get into some questions because we've got a little over 10 minutes left. But it brings up a question that I had seen that somebody submitted, which is, how do you all think about and measure guest satisfaction, or like how do you know when you've created, Las Vegas or Denver, that it's working, that it's doing what you wanted it to do?
I mean, you have data survey stuff like NPS scores and stuff that you look at. It's tough though, because a lot of the things that people have a hard time with at Meow Wolf are things that it's like they need to have a hard time with. It's like people will say, I went to Meow Wolf and I didn't know what to do. There were nobody told me what the point was.
Didn't get directions.
Like we don't want to create a list of tasks for people to do. Like it's really important that they don't know what to do. And if they can't grasp the fact that they can do anything they want, then they're missing the point. So it's like sometimes some like guest experience stuff, you have to just be like, okay, they're not ready for this or something, but the best way to tell is just walking through the exhibits, man, and just seeing the way that people are engaging with it, especially kids, like seeing the way kids engage with it. It's like to a kid, it's like they get it, like we've had kids who are like, I finally feel like someone gets it, and it's watching that is really special.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Some other questions here. This is from Steve. How can you capture the wonderful shared experience of Meow Wolf in the metaverse? And so I guess maybe this is thinking, well, I guess it depends on whose definition of the metaverse, but like how
in the virtual environment.
Yeah, virtual environment, potentially, that this concept of a shared experience is a big part of Meow Wolf. I'm sure people go alone, but when I've been, it's all about, a shared experience. And I'm curious how you think about that translating.
Yeah, I mean, social, like a multi-user, large-scale social virtual platforms, virtual environments are great for that. I mean, and like, I honestly think that we have a lot of work we can do in using technology to have more of a shared experience. I feel like people go into Meow Wolf, have the experience they have, then go home, and then it's like, how do I share this? Like you can talk to people about it, but like how do I like share my experience and like bounce my experience off of others? And I think that like you can go on Reddit, you can go on Discord, I guess, but like having a landing spot within a virtual realm would be really helpful in building that shared experience.
Yeah, interesting. This is a question, this could be a long conversation probably, but if memory and language relates to the past, what will be the communication of the future? Will the future of communication be based on more curiosity and play versus fear and anger? It's a good one. It's from Rebecca.
Yeah, I guess it's a matter of how far into the future you're thinking. But I would say that the trajectory, or this would be my assumption, the trajectory has been that the space between an idea and the creation of that idea is increasing. It's like the space between that is decreasing. The space and time between it, really. and that like the language of the future is probably creator. I mean, it's creator tools, you know, going from an idea in your head to then it existing out in the world, or it existing, I should just say. And I'm sure creator tools will get to the point at some point where you don't even have to use your hands for it. Like we will be able to imagine it and then it will be able to be produced.
Interesting.
And so I think like there's a language, like the language is envisioning,
Yeah.
you know, the language is literally imagination is what the language would be. Like if we could do that now, I wouldn't have to be talking to you. I could just be like throwing out like images or building entire worlds around you and the guest, you know, the audience on their computers. Like, you know, you see what I'm saying? Like words wouldn't matter if you could create anything from your imagination instantly.
What do you think AI's role in that is? And,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. AI has so much to do with that. Yeah, I mean, I wonder, like, I've never really thought of this before, but just, you know, I wonder how much AI is going to actually just help us understand our own intelligence, you know, and process our own intelligence rapidly.
Right.
Like if I think of a tree, AI's ability to recognize that the image of the tree that's in my head, and then the ability to like to output it. Yeah.
And I had a discussion with a friend recently about, you know, where AI is going, what jobs it will be taking over. And then we got into this whole discussion about AI jumping into a creative lens, right? Because there is AI created songs and music, and AI created physical art now.
There's some amazing AI art. I mean, I mess around on some like AI art, you know, generated art platforms, and I love it. And there's like beautiful images for sure.
And at some point, it'll probably be able to read your brain and create art that it knows you're going to resonate with.
That's awesome. I don't mind.
Maybe the next Meow Wolf experience will be built based off of just AI will build it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you ask yourself, like, I like thinking about this graph. It's not a graph that actually exists, you know, but I can imagine what it would look like. Just ask yourself the question, how many things have been created from the imagination? And start in 10,000 BC and then go all the way to 2022 and ask yourself, yeah, how many things have been created from the imagination, and graph it. And that graph goes like vertical, starts going seriously vertical, like around the first industrial revolution. And to the point now where like everyone can probably look around where they are right now and ask that same question, how many of the things around me has been created from the imagination? And at least for me, I'm in a hotel lobby, and it's like almost everything around me has been created from the imagination. And that trend is only going to continue. And so it's going to be like AI generated stuff. It's going to be digital creation, of course, that ends up flooding our entire existence with more imaginative creations all around us.
That's awesome. This is an interesting question from Lee. In what ways do you hope people do emulate Meow Wolf? Are you seeing copycats? Or do you want people to create their own versions of Meow Wolf universe?
I do. I want as many like weird, unknown, you know, artistic spaces as possible in the world. I would hope that people would be ambitious and unique, you know, like to strive for ambition and strive for uniqueness. Probably more than anything. Open exploration, you know, it's like really, it's very disheartening when it's a single file line, or when it's a one room to the next room to the next room.
Yeah, linear.
You know, like even like Super Blue, amazing work, like Terrell and Kasama and, you know, Team Lab, but like it's room to room to room to room. Like I, as the guest, had no agency to explore in it, you know, and it was so disappointing. So yeah, those would be the things that I'd be focused on.
Cool. I like this one, and it ties into some of the work that we do, but from Adrian, curious to hear your thoughts with brands creating immersive experiences. where do you draw the line between art and paid commercial, or that or that blend of the two?
I don't think that they're mutually exclusive, like I think that a lot of art is already paid commercial, and it's like, it's a bit disingenuous to think that art is separate from commercial, or that anything that we do is separate from commercial.
Yeah.
And so I think like kind of owning that already, and being okay with that, not having hangups around that.
Mhm.
But then vice versa, like if a brand created a, immersive activation, it could also be really cool. It could also be really dope.
Yeah.
It's all about the known and unknown, like if Pepsi created an activation that was very predictable,
Yeah.
then it would suck. If they did something that was very unpredictable and really kind of out there, then it could be cool. And it's fine if it's Pepsi, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, we're seeing this more and more. I think brands and organizations, I mean, Meow Wolf in and of itself as a brand also, wants to get people to spend more time. And how do you do
Yeah.
that? And I think exploration is an amazing way to do that.
Yeah. And I would encourage, like, one thing that I've been disheartened by is like, these marketing budgets from big brands go into experiential marketing activations. They take up a lot of talent.
Mhm.
They blast forward. They give a bunch of really talented people like a quick little gig to do this one thing, and then it gets scrapped and it's gone. And I would just encourage all the talent that's capable of creating those experiential activations for these big brands to like stop taking those gigs, coordinate with each other, start your own business. It's not the brand that is like interesting in that activation. It's the creative that's interesting,
Right.
and make it permanent, and people are going to probably go and love it, And so like, but it's just kind of like this like breadcrumb thing where a lot of creative producers and a lot of artists, a lot of experienced designers, that's their best gig to get. But it's like they stop taking it and just design their own thing, own their own IP. Like, then I think it's, the value chain is, I think, better represented if that was to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got like a couple other questions and then we'll wrap, because I know you've got a busy day ahead. I'm riffing on a question here from Tavius, but Meow Wolf has known for a bunch of successes. Any failures that you've had along the way?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we've definitely had failures. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think at like what level of failure I should talk about here. We went from building the House of Eternal Return in Santa Fe to then committing to the Vegas project and the Denver project, which were these massive, like each project was much larger in scope. And what happened was we basically became a production company, like, because we had to, like, we had to bring on people, like high level people who knew how to produce amazing things. We had to basically become a factory. And I think in that 2 or 3 year period of focusing on Denver and Vegas, I think we failed to like balance what it is to be an artist and what it means to be a producer,
Interesting.
Which is like and it was, we were forced to like move in the direction that we did. But
yeah.
I think now we're kind of like taking a step back. Vegas and Denver are open and they're successful, and now we can kind of like recalibrate and get back to what it means to be an artist and what it means to value artists. So yeah, I would point at that as being maybe one of the bigger, quote unquote failures, even though it wasn't a failure because it's what we had to do.
Yeah.
But one of the bigger kind of like learning moments for us.
And were you playing both sides of that, artist and producer?
Myself?
Yeah.
For a moment there, I was playing CEO, who raising the money to move forward. So I guess I was playing the role of producer.
Yeah.
and selling a vision. But then soon after that, I stepped down and stepped kind of out of the you know out of the main day to day of the company. So yeah.
Cool. This last question is from Chris, and this is we'll have to interpret this one, but any thoughts on integrating transformative experiences? I don't know if this is integrating transformative experiences, other transformative experiences into Meow Wolf. I don't know if this is.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I think like folks, if we're talking about like, like marijuana is legal in Denver, it's legal in Vegas, it's legal in New Mexico. So all the places where we have exhibits, like people can smoke weed and then come into the exhibit by their choice if they want to.
Right.
We probably will never offer that, at the exhibit. It probably doesn't make sense, but like, I think people can make their own choices. We think that like the exhibit itself is transformative on its own and don't want to create barriers for anyone to be able to experience it. So if we're talking like substance, then, I think people are, free to do whatever they want to do as individuals, but as a company, like we think that the exhibits sort of stand on their own, without the need for substance. But like technologies like binaural beats or like pulsating light type stuff, or there's a lot of, or biofeedback stuff. There's a lot of really cool transformational therapies or transformational technologies that I would be super interested in embedding throughout a Meow Wolf exhibit,
Cool.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I actually met this physicist from Italy who has a device that can project a 35% accurate digital image of what you're thinking. And
wow.
he says it's about 35% accurate, which is a pretty good number. And so I'd love for stuff like that, like really forward technology like that to be embedded into like a playful art experience,
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Lastly, do you have any advice for people, for creatives, for people looking for inspiration, especially as we step more and more maybe into that dream state of the metaverse?
Nature, getting out into nature as much as possible. I'm sure a lot of artists are doing that. A lot of creators are doing that. I also think just like daily reminder, okay, so I launched a, this is gonna sound like a plug, but it actually is relevant to this question. I launched a supplement company like 2 days ago called the Imagination Pill. And the Imagination Pill is like, it's a brain function supplement, like a lot of different brain function supplements. But the purpose of it for me was to focus on creativity as a daily thing. Like we have supplements for weight gain or weight loss. We have supplements for like memory. We have supplements for like work productivity. But like the imagination itself, creativity doesn't really have, and even just like, we all know daily supplements don't really do anything with, unless you're also combining it with like a routine. But it's a helpful thing to be like, all right, today I'm going to care about my imagination.
Awesome.
Like, and just do that every day, and combine it with like routines of caring about the imagination. So yeah, I think like, and then of course, the biggest barrier to your own imagination is your identity. It is who you think you are, and your own, like, it is your past. Like the imagination flourishes within the unknown. So building a relationship with spontaneity, literally doing spontaneous things, like give yourself moments throughout the day where you just act out in whatever way, just so that you can break the knownness of yourself. I think is like critical.
I absolutely love that. Vince, thank you so much for taking the time with all of us. This has been Wonderful discussion. I feel like I could sit here and talk for hours with you about all of this, and maybe we'll find some more time. But thank you to all who joined. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Appreciate it. Cheers.